Well, we'll be talking with Marie Lerch today. Marie, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you, Janice. I'm delighted to be here and share this time with you and your students and talk about one of my favorite campaigns of all time.
Well, that's great. Now, first, let me introduce you properly. Marie headed marketing and communications for over 20 years for the large management consulting firm Booz Allen Hamilton. She currently has her own management, executive communications and speech writing company, but she's also an adjunct with us in our SPR program, teaching global communications both online and on campus. So Marie, before we talk about the Booz Allen centennial celebration, could you give us just a little description of what Booz Allen Hamilton does?
Certainly. Booz Allen is 100 years old, which is why, well, it's a little more than 100 years now, why we celebrated the centennial. We were one of the pioneers of the management consulting profession. And today, Booz Allen is a Fortune 500 company that does management and technology consulting and engineering services, and primarily sells to other businesses. So we would be known as a B2B company. We don't sell to consumers. Consulting firms don't build things generally, can design things like large computer systems. But just to give you a couple of quick examples of some things that Booz Allen would do, for the Army, is a big client. A lot of soldiers were getting killed in Iraq because of the improvised explosive devices that were very easy to make, and people were setting them off with cell phones. And Booz Allen figured out a way to jam that signal very simply and easily. So a lot of soldiers' lives were saved as well as their lives. Another thing that is a project for the Center for Disease Control. They had trouble with their vaccine program because vaccines have a short shelf life and some of them have to be refrigerated. So especially trying to get vaccines to far-flung places, a lot of vaccine was lost. And Booz Allen figured out a new way to design the supply chain for the Centers for Disease Control so that the vaccines got there fresh and refrigerated if they needed to be. So those are some of the kinds of things that consulting firms do. These days, cybersecurity is a big emphasis. So a lot of clients like banks, as well as the Department of Defense, that need to protect their computer systems from hacking.
Well, thank you very much. And it's a great opportunity for us to hear from the communications management perspective of your firm and how you have handled, well, we're here to talk about your 100th anniversary. It was in 2014.
Right.
And I know that you started planning it at least a couple of years before. Maybe you could tell us how you did that, what led to your strategy and your objectives, and what did you hope to achieve through this centennial programming?
Well, one of the nice things about a centennial is it's not a surprise. You know it's coming up, so you have plenty of time to think about it. We did a pretty major anniversary celebration for our 90th anniversary in 2004. And so we had some good lessons learned from that, what we liked, what went well, what we wanted to do differently. And obviously we had to do some more things for the 100th anniversary. We did seek input from a number of different sources. I wouldn't say we did a broad crowdsourcing because we've been thinking about this for so long. Really almost our challenge was more focus than more ideas. But we did certainly seek ideas from employees, ideas from long tenured, both current and retirees, since this was centennial celebration. And we employed maybe about 3 or 4 different outside contractors that had experience in this field. Some had worked for Booz Allen before and some had not. And we asked them for their ideas, how they would approach it. And out of that external sourcing, we did choose a firm actually called the History Factory. in Washington, and they mostly helped us with theming and some ideas. We did most of it in-house. And we had a couple challenges with the anniversary. It was a time of business downturn. Booz Allen's main client is the US federal government, and there was a real downturn in the government contracting business at the time we were doing this. Just in general, as a consultant to the government, you can't do things too flashy or look like you're wasting money. So it needed to be, it needed to be discreet, not look like we were calling a lot of rah-rah attention to ourselves. Additionally, some very big companies like IBM and Lockheed had in the last 2 or 3 years celebrated their 100th anniversary. And they're much bigger, obviously, than Booz Allen, and had, probably billions to spend on advertising, which we did not. So we needed a strategy that was different. And what we came up with, we called basically a strategy of partnership and service. We wanted it not to be all from us. We wanted to really build on Booz Allen's long tradition of community service. And we created a centerpiece of the program that we called the Centennial Community Challenge. And we challenged our employees to volunteer and record 100,000 hours of community service during the anniversary year. We had about 20,000 employees at the time. So, that was a stretch, but a reasonable stretch. And then we wanted to do partnerships with very respected organizations, so we could have them talk about us rather than us talk about that. And we looked at organizations in business. For example, the New York Stock Exchange. We rang the opening bell on the first business day of our anniversary year. We did the Aspen Institute in Colorado, which is big into education. The USS Midway Museum in San Diego. We sponsored their patriotic holidays to go after our military audience, so 4th of July, Memorial Day, and Veterans Day. And then in Washington, D.C., which is near our headquarters, we chose to sponsor the exhibition of the paintings of Edgar Degas and Mary Cassatt that was being put on at the National Gallery of Art. And that was our most expensive project and the biggest one. And I know, Jen, it's the one you wanted to focus on this call. So,
yeah. Right. Well, actually, why did you choose that specific museum, that specific Degas Cassatt? Why this particular one? Or was it just how did that happen?
Well, starting with the National Gallery, Booz Allen had sponsored an exhibition, which we'd never done before, about 7 years before. It was an exhibition of Edward Hopper. And it was a great experience all around. What made it great was, for one thing, the National Gallery is just a fabulous institution, and they're great to work with. They couldn't be more professional. It's just wonderful. Art exhibitions are long. They're 6 months long. So, there was time we sponsored a golf tournament. It was over in 4 days. And so there's a lot of time to engage employees, to have special tours for clients, to do all sorts of things, online and in person when you have 6 months. The other great thing for us in Washington, I mentioned that the federal government is Booz Allen's largest client. You cannot give anything of value to a government employee that's considered a gratuity. So the fact that the museums in Washington are free, the admission is free, we could have special tours and invite our government clients, and that was perfectly legal. So that's why the National Gallery. Mm-hmm. We really did want an art exhibition for the anniversary year, and we were shopping for one. There was one by Wyatt that I thought was really nice, and I have to give my boss, our CEO at the time, Ralph Schrader, credit. He just was not. He thought that it was too austere, that exhibition, and he basically nixed that. He wasn't excited about it. And I learned to trust his judgment on that. And then the National Gallery said, well, we have this other exhibition coming, and it's one of the first ones they've done that was a collaboration of two artists, Edward Degas and Mary Cassatt. And we loved that. We loved the idea. First of all, it was Impressionism, which is always popular. And Impressionism is about creativity and breaking out and innovation, which was a Booz Allen theme. We love the fact of the collaboration. You know, we want to collaborate with clients. We work in teams. That spoke very well to our strategy. And then the diversity was spectacular. We loved that it was a woman artist working with a male artist. And in fact, the prime painting, the sort of cover of the exhibition was Mary Cassatt's Girl in a Blue Armchair. That was the signature piece of the exhibition. So all those things came into play, and it just, we couldn't have chosen something better if we got to design it ourselves.
It's just delightful to hear the backside, the background on this story. And I really can see how it became such a perfect association for Booz Allen. Just curious, were there any interesting or surprising developments or things that happened during this long partnership? And also, how did it play out after it ended?
Well, a couple of things, you know, a lot was what we expected and hoped for. We thought that it would be a popular exhibition. It was even more popular than we and the National Gallery expected. There were over 350,000 people that came. It was their most popular exhibition in 10 years. So that was a very nice surprise. Another interesting surprise to us was the technology dimension. I mentioned Booz Allen does a lot of technology consulting, and the signature painting, the Girl in the Armchair, the National Gallery had just done some very extensive restoration on that painting and had used a lot of X-ray spectrography to actually find the areas in the painting that had been painted over and matched it with correspondence between Degas and Cassatt, where it actually showed the changes that that Edgar Degas had recommended and where the painting had been done. So we like that technology dimension. And I'd say another sort of surprise, well, I use the word, the National Gallery said that we scared them with our plans for extensive social media. And that was really different. The Edward Hopper exhibition had 7 years before, social media really wasn't such a big thing. And with Degas Cassatt, we really did have plans both within our employee base and externally. We had, you know, virtually used every platform. We had Facebook contests and games with prizes like a scarf of a Degas painting. And so that was very popular, and we got tremendous number of impressions. And the National Gallery was so pleased with the response to social media that a number of the things that we introduced for Degas Cassatt, they built on. And that kind of goes to one of your other questions, Janice, about you know, what you built on. Just this past summer, within the last 3 or 4 months, the Wall Street Journal has a column in their weekend edition called Masterpiece, which you may have seen, where they pick a piece of music or art or architecture and write a column about it. And Mary Cassatt's Girl in a Blue Armchair was the Masterpiece column, featured just a few months ago. And so that was a real treat. And it talked about this collaboration between Degas and Cassatt.
You have given us so much to discuss and respond to. We're going to be talking about this afterwards. I thank you so much. Now, we're going to close in a couple minutes, but I wanted to give you an opportunity, if you'd like, to share any other highlights from the Centennial program that you feel that would be of interest to the students, and then wrap it up with, I don't know, any career advice that you might have for people new to the PR field or communications field, or those that are kind of wanting to move up the ladder.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I think I mentioned early on about the Centennial Community Challenge. And Booz Allen has a long history of volunteerism, and we found really that was the way to engage our employees. And we did set this goal of 100,000 hours, and we tracked it, and we, different teams competed against other teams, and different cities and offices competed against other cities to see who could volunteer the most hours and have the most impact. And they would get the top 3 people who volunteered hours, would get a substantial donation given to the charity of their choice. And at the end of the challenge, it was 153,000 hours. So far exceeded our expectations for our employees' volunteerism. And that was really delightful. I would say the only other thing, I went in there thinking, the anniversary year is January 1 to December 31st. And one of the things that our consultants recommended was start with a 100-day countdown. So our anniversary actually started on September 23rd with countdown to 100. And that was very helpful in setting the themes and expectations and gearing up for the Centennial Community Challenge. And it ended about the 3rd week of January when we fully tabulated the number of volunteer hours and then made the grants to the charities. So I think that was very, very happy.
Great. Great. Well, we've been talking about employee engagement a lot in this course, and we'll continue to do it. And so I'm so happy that that was a strong aspect of your program. So finally, any words of advice for us?
I think at any stage in the career, the things that I've found are most important are to have ideas, build relationships, and deliver. And ideas, they don't have to be the, entirely new inventions. I mean, if you have to write a memo or a press release, that it should have an idea behind it. It should be something clever and thought-provoking about it. Or, a big campaign like the Booz Allen Centennial. We wanted there to be some ideas behind it, something interesting. I always think you need to come to the table with ideas, whether they're big ideas or small ideas, and practical ideas, not creativity for its own sake, but be known as an ideas person. Relationships are huge. I mean, talent and hard work are not enough. You really do need relationships, and relationships at all levels, people above and below and beside you. Relationships are so important. Be known as somebody that people want to work with. And deliver. You have to deliver. You have to deliver. No question. And I would just close by saying, and be famous for something. We all, in our profession, we need to learn everything across, and that's what's so great about a program, like our SPR program, is you really do get grounded in all the disciplines. You know how they fit together. You really understand and can build off each other. So absolutely learn everything, be competent across the full range, but then see what really turns you on and be famous for that. I loved speech writing and executive communications. So when it was time to step off the rat race and downshift a bit, that's what I focused on and enjoy doing.
Well, thank you so much, Marie Lerch. We've appreciated this time. It's flown by. And we'll say goodbye for now.
Well, thanks so much for the opportunity.